Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 126. I hope you're all having a beautiful weekend so far. We have a lot to get into today due to some recent developments on the world stage. You're all probably well aware of what's been going on in US politics, and we will actually be decoding what happened with Trump today in today's podcast because it unlocked a series of findings for me that I think are absolutely critical for you to be aware of right now in this setup into the month of September, which we've been talking about now for a very long time now. And here we are. We're just days away from the blue moon and moving into the key month of September. So I can't wait to get into all of that today. Definitely make sure you are prepared to take some notes because there will be a lot of gnosis. And also wanted to start out today's podcast just by spreading some love and good energy to anyone that's out there that could be affected by what's going on right now in Hawaii and those fires. I understand that it's a tough time and just want you to be aware that the Wolfpack cares about you. If you're a part of this community and you're being affected by it, we're sending you lots of love. This is absolutely a tough time in the realm, and I'm well aware that this is a yearly thing, and everyone who's in those areas, whether it be Oregon State or Washington or Vancouver or California, you're pretty used to this kind of stuff, and it's sad. Once you learn the truth of truths of how it all starts and why it's happening, once you are aware of the truth, it sets you free, but it could be testing on your soul. So I get it, and right now has some darkness, and it's not just for those people, it's for a lot of people's. And want you to know that here in this community, we are a family. We are focused on collaboration. So if you're ever feeling anything's ever down for you, feel free to just chime in the Discord. Let us know where you're at with things, and we're here to help each other. So again, welcome to Red Pill Podcast 126. If you are new here to the community, welcome. It's so great to have you here with us. If you have yet to get access to our Discord, just make sure to go ahead and send me a direct message on Patreon with your Discord username and the last four numbers after your username, and I will reply back to you with a direct message on Patreon. Don't email me. Don't write in the comments section with your Discord username. You must follow those instructions. That's the only way that I'll be able to get you access. Also, doing an incredible job on the altcoin voting system for these podcasts, but just wanted to let you know, let's hold off on the coins that we typically talk about, such as VeChain, Zilliqa, Theta, XDC, Stellar Lumens. We're going to hold off on those probably for a couple months just because we've talked about them so many times this year, and pretty much the last two times that I did TA on either of those projects, we're still sort of in the same energy and range. And that just has to do with the stage we're in right now in this particular cycle, which is phase one of the bull run for Bitcoin. Pretty much everything else is still sort of in bear market mode. I'm aware that there's isolated incidences, but needless to say, we need to focus on everything for where we're at right now, which is still sort of an accumulation energy for a lot of those altcoins. So just to be clear with everyone, I think it's best that maybe I'll dedicate a podcast in a couple months to my outlook in 2024 for those particular projects. And I think you guys will enjoy that. We might even do a live stream for that particular podcast, for that red pill. So I just wanted to let you know, let's stop voting on things like Zill and Theta and VeChain and all of that. We'll cover that in a podcast that I live stream, and maybe let's give it October. And it will be a live stream to communicate with you guys here in a way where we could all game plan and talk about our thoughts moving into 2024. And remember, the months of September and October moving into November might be a short and sweet accumulation period. So I just want you to be aware, I do share whenever I'm buying or selling over in the Discord. It's not call outs. It's not to give people a trade setup. That's not what this is. This community is based on self-reliance, not copying. Again, I think a lot of people need these skills right now more than ever, and the person who's going to have the hardest time in this world moving into 2024 is the person who's just copying somebody. So that's what makes me different from many. is I'm here to be a true teacher of self-reliance. And I think that's very important because that's what will make the community the strongest in the long term. That's what's going to make, when we get through the bull run of 2024 on an individual level, we're all going to be so incredibly powerful on this world stage. And then when we come together, imagine. So I just wanted to give a quick update in case you missed the last notification on Discord from yesterday, or if you didn't get around to watching my live stream. My live stream did have a lot of issues with the internet connection. Again, it's out of my control. I'm doing my best here. More importantly, I'm able to at least do some time with you guys in those live streams. I believe I almost got 2 hours out yesterday. But yeah, just some technical difficulties the entire time. I'm not really sure what's going on. But what I think is really important here, if you missed those updates, is just all right here. I'm not going to say it just for the safety of what's happening, but you could read this. I got one of those, and this is the reason why. Okay? So a solution to this is very, very simple. And it's just go over to my website, WatersAbove.com, and sign up for my free email list. Just join my email list. It's 100% free, and I do not spam my email list. It's as easy as just going over to here where it says login. You press login, and then you could sign up that way. All it requires is your email and password. I do not need your name. I do not need your address. I don't collect any other information. There's no data selling. It's just an email and password like any other website. Then if you want to do it in an alternative way, if for instance you're on a mobile device, just scroll all the way down to the bottom and you're going to see this box right here which says subscribe, enter your email address, and you could do it that way. So this way I can update you as needed and also go over to this very important link right here, which is my Linktree link. Go ahead and bookmark or save this link so that you could have access to all my official links. It's just nice and easy for you to reference because it shows you everything. You don't have to put in any extra work, nothing you need to figure out. It makes it nice and simple and convenient, and it's all in one place. This way you could have all my official links. So go ahead and bookmark or save this Linktree link. And also, I have big plans for my website in 2024. And I want you to know that this is just the start of what's motivating me to move forward with my own platform for the Wolfpack. And I appreciate your support in this process as we build this out. Now, moving on to what's happening in the economy. We had the recent Jerome Powell speech at the Jackson Hole Symposium. The market actually responded positively into the weekly close we just had on Friday for the traditional markets. So I'll be reviewing the indices after I present today's decode, and I'll give everyone a full weekly market wrap up on the recent trading week and what to expect into tomorrow's market open, plus a setup to consider for this upcoming week, including the DXY. I think it's important that I keep up with sharing my gnosis on the stock market week by week, because that's really what's going to tell me when a big pivot is to be expected in the whole economy. Okay, so let's get to today's decode, shall we? All right, so I made this very as clean as I possibly could. I didn't have time to do a full-blown presentation, so I decided to just make it a collage, just put it all onto one slide for you. And I'm going to review it step by step. So the date that this individual got allegedly arrested was on August 24th. And if we take from August 24th to the end of Jubilee, which is Sunday, September 17th of 2023, that is 24 days apart. And this is very, very important because this individual's name that we know him by as Donald 24 in Chaldean, and in the same cipher 24, the last name. So you can see it's immediately coded in. He was arrested in Fulton County, Georgia. Now, Fulton gives you 33 in Chaldean, and you could see that Fulton County is in the 33rd north parallel. So 33 degrees is where this is at. Georgia's location within the United States, coordinates 33 degrees north. And what's so important here is some extra code that I'm going to reveal in a moment. But if you see that 24 days, which we were talking about before, equals 3 weeks and 3 days. That's the 33. And the end of Jubilee, this date right here of September 17th, is a 24 date numerology. Again, 24 days is 3 weeks, 3 days, happens in Georgia, 33 degrees north, coordinates. Fulton, where it happened, where that arrest happened, where the courthouse was, where the jail is, 33. Now, if you consider this connection right here, from the date of the arrest to the founding date of Fulton County, which is on December 20th, you could see that right there, and it's plugged in over here. It equals 119 days, including the end date. That's the 119. We've been talking a lot about that 911, 119 code this entire year. What's fascinating about this is if you look at the time frame of 119 days, it's exactly 17 weeks. All right? Now remember, September 17th is the end of Jubilee. So that 17 number is really powerful. But this is exactly 17 weeks, and Fulton County is 170 years old during this arrest. You remove that 0, you come back to the number 17. And after this date, it will become 171 years old, which is the palindrome of 1771, forwards and backwards. So it's important that this is happening right now. Donald Trump became president in 2017. I spoke about this a lot, actually, in my Super Bowl decode, believe it or not. I included this individual as a powerful player in that decode. Believe it or not, it helped me tremendously to make some decisions. And it had everything to do with this 2017 because that was when the Eagles won their only Super Bowl. And the Eagles were just in the Super Bowl that they lost. And I was able to determine this off of negative energy. And now that I'm seeing this happen to Donald Trump in this year, the year that the Eagles lost, when comparing it back to the year he won, where it was positive for him, you see how it's a canceling out of energy. And he was associated with QAnon. Q is the 17th letter in the English alphabet. He was arrested 71 days after his last birthday. Think about that. The mirror of 17 is 71. 17 is the 7th prime number. We're going to be talking about this 17-7 a lot today, family, so please keep this in mind. Because Jubilee is all about the number 7. We have 7 cycles of 7 Shemitah, which is 49 years, and on your 50th year is called Biblical Jubilee. 9/11, the event we were referring to earlier, happened during a Shemitah year. The Shemitah is a 7-year cycle. Donald Trump is 77 years old right now. 7 times 7 is 49 on the 50th year's Jubilee. It's very powerful. These 24s that we were talking about earlier, they're very important because we're moving into the Hebrew year of 5,784. 5 plus 7 plus 8 plus 4 is 24. Since this code has a lot of 17s, and then you mirror that 71, just like I taught everyone in the Year of the Rabbit Decoded. Whenever you find a number, you want to mirror it and you want to try it both ways because that's how everything in alchemy works. It's mirrored, not mimicked, right? This is why these so-called master numbers are powerful because you cannot mirror them. You cannot mirror 33 or 22 or 11. They are the same. Now, you're getting this code of 17 we talked about a lot, and also this 119911. Consider September 10th. So we're going to take 2 dates and write them down right now, all right? Date number 1, and we're going to decode it even more in a moment. We have date number 1 being September 10th. This is 17 days after his arrest, which also had a 17 date numerology, and it's the day before 9/11. And September 26th is 33 days after the arrest. Remember all the 33s we were talking about, this event happening in the 33 degrees north, Fulton County. All right. So 33 days after the arrest is September 26th, which is the day leaving 96 days in the year. That's very important. I'm going to get to that a little bit later, but I believe if you've been following my work for any length of time, you've been hearing me talk a lot about the number 6996, coming back to the sign of Cancer. And again, Bitcoin's all-time high is 69,000. We see this number so much in our code lately. On the 69th day of this year, Silicon Valley Bank failed. The Queen died at 96. Yada, yada, yada. I've said it so many times, these sort of things, but if you're new here, it is a good reminder. And I will be breaking it down very thoroughly when I move into the next part of this decode. So this connection of September 26 being the day leaving 96 days in the year, and it is also a 24-date numerology. Remember, we're talking about August 24th, the day that he got arrested. And you see Donald 24, Trump 24. We're getting a lot of this code, and it's setting us up for the Shemitah year, because in the year of, or sorry, not the Shemitah year, I mean the end of Jubilee, getting through it. And that 24 is the X. I know I've talked about that a lot in my last two podcasts as well. So definitely make sure to watch the last Red Pill if you haven't, because that's one of the best to date. I really was in some serious flow state when I was working on that. So just to wrap this up, September 10th and September 26th are 17 days apart if you count the end date. And that brings us full circle in this decode to 17 being Q, 17 being the seventh prime number. And we've been talking about that a lot. 170 years of Fulton County. That's 17. It's all tying back to this guy. He won presidency in 2017. The Eagles won in 2017. Philadelphia, where the Eagles are from, was the first capital. Then it was moved to DC. This is all about a false republic. This is a very important code. It's funny that I say all this at the 17th minute. So I'm going to move on now. I think you get a good, solid foundation now for what we're about to move into. Okay? So those important dates that we were talking about were September 10th of 2023. And this is naturally the day before 9/11, the 22nd anniversary of 9/11. And it is 7 days before the end of Jubilee. You could see that right there. All about the number 17 and 7. You could see that September 10th, is a 17-date numerology. And September should actually be the 7th month in your system, because it is septem in Latin. The prefix means 7. So this means that the date of September 10th written internationally should be septem is 7, but 107. You would write it as 10/7. You remove that 0 from the 10, you end up at 17. You see what's happening? And remember, we spoke about this a while ago, but for anyone new here, a lot of people thought July 7th was the 777 date. Since 2023 adds up to 7 in numerology, 2 + 2 + 3. And July is not your 7th month. September is. Remember, we need to move past this Gregorian calendar. If we're going to be good decoders, we need to consider truth. And it's all in the words. And if you believe that October is your 10th month, even though octagon is an 8-sided polygon, I mean, I don't really know what to tell you. It's fake. It's corrupted on purpose. Council of Nicaea. Go research it. So we could actually consider September 7th as a much more accurate 777 date. Septem 7 on the 7th day of Septem. And then you have 2 + 2 + 3 = 7. So just consider that. Consider that as part of our code for all of this. 777 connections. Then considering August 24th, you can see that these are 14 days apart. That's 7 + 7 = 14. And this day that of the arrest was a 21-date numerology. That's 7 plus 7 plus 7, 777, the jackpot. This all ties back to the code. And to go very deep here, I personally look at when the sun enters Pisces in sidereal, which is practicing astronomy, actually observing the sky, not tropical. I look at the time where the sun moves into Pisces as our true new year, not Easter. I look at it as when the sun moves into Pisces, which is essentially around March 15th. And if we look at March 15th in 2024, we're going to go to that date. We can actually tie this all together to September 10th, the original date that I was telling you about, out of the two dates that are important based off of our Donald Trump decode. And you can see that connecting from September 10th over to the first day, the true new year, which I believe is more accurate when the sun moves into Pisces. And you could see that they're 187 days apart. That's so important because 187 is slang for murder. It's the murder code, the California Penal Council. It's a code. So if you really want your mind blown, let's actually type out 187. And we're going to see that that equals 59. And 59 is your 17th prime number. Again, 17. That's the 7th prime. The significance behind 17 specifically for Trump because he was always tied back to Q. 17th letter. And it's also wild how if you type out 187, you get this 148, just like Donald J. Trump gives you the 148 in the same cipher. So I decided to take from the 148th day of this year, which is going to be May 28th. And you can see the 148 right there. And we're going to take it to the day of the arrest, which was 8/24 of this year. And it's 88 days apart. So now we're seeing more code here because 88 is the analemma of the sun and the moon, which rules this matrix. Some of you might be asking right now, why does this all matter? What is this about? Well, let's take 88 days after the arrest date and see where that brings us. I'm going to take a quick sip of tea. I'll let this sink in for a moment. So, November 20th. Why does this date matter? That's Joe Biden's birthday. His adversary. It's Neo and Agent Smith. That's what the world thinks, at least. So, this is insane how this is all coded together from the arrest date to Joe Biden, specifically his birthday. How incredible. Absolutely wild. This is the beauty of the decoding system when you treat it like a ripple effect, which is how time patterns naturally function. You can see going forwards, going backwards. You can actually anticipate moving forwards by decoding what has already happened. You could decode the future. And doing this unlocks even more clues to strengthen your decode. So the last thing I could consider about this 88 code is 8 plus 8 equals 16. And if you take from the day of Trump's arrest over 16 days, that's going to naturally bring you to the 9th of September, which is again in that same time frame of the 3-day window that I want you to consider around September 10th. We have September 9th, September 10th, and September 11th, the 22nd anniversary. Everything works in threes. This is why Rosh Hashanah is a event that is 3 days. This comes back to the gnosis that the moon moves through a new sign on the zodiac wheel every 2.5 days or so. So essentially every 3 days. Everything works as a trinity here in this matrix. It's father, mother equals child. It's Israel, left eye, right eye, center eye, which I call the first eye. You have the calm before the storm, the day of the ritual, and the cleanup. We gather, we maintenance, we destroy, rinse, repeat. That's how life works. Now, the date of September 26th, which was the second date that I had you guys write down, this we identified at the beginning of our decode tied to 33 days after Trump's arrest. You could see that right here. Just a reminder, 26th of September will be exactly 1 year since the end of the Shemitah that ended Rosh Hashanah back in 2022. That was Rosh Hashanah of September 25th, 26th, 22nd of 2022, end of the Shemitah, and what I believed propelled us forward into what I'm calling the year of the Jubilee, which we're in right now for a couple more weeks. And I was thinking a lot about that number 22, since we're moving into the 22nd year anniversary of the 9/11 ritual, and Trump got arrested in Georgia. And if you look at Georgia, you're going to get that 22 in Chaldean. And some of you probably remember the Georgia Guidestones and how those were ritualized back in 2022. Again, back then, that was during the year of the Shemitah that I was just talking about a moment ago, in the Hebrew year of 5,782. That adds to 22. The Georgia Guidestones were opened on the 22nd day of March. That's exoterically 322. That's the number of skull and bones. And this year we're in the year of 223, the mirror of that number. And remember how earlier I was talking about the 187, the murder code, which is just the number that is identified to that particular concept? Well, the Georgia Guidestones were demolished on July 6th. And if you go to July 6th in the calendar, you're going to see 7/6 is the 187th day of the year, the day that they were taken down. That's the murder. Think about this. So if we want more code to come along to these connections, we have Guidestones giving us 138. We have Donald Trump giving you 138. Same cipher. The county and prison Trump was in, again, it was in Fulton, equals 88. 88 days after his arrest is Joe Biden's birthday. September 26th is 33 days after the arrest. Let's get back to that. And if we go back, Fulton equals 33 in Chaldean, like I showed you earlier, and Fulton County, Georgia is on the 33rd degree parallel. Now, Atlanta is the capital. Atlanta gives you 69, and let's go to September 26th, and we could see that that date leaves 96 days left in the year. The mirror, just like the Queen died at 96. We're talking about an end of energy right now, guys. We're not talking about positive. This is all very, very, very negative. Okay, I want you to realize that. Some people, when they're listening to my decodes, they're like, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Well, think, okay? Think about what this is all kind of the main theme of this presentation. It's about death, resurrection, and purity. Something will be born from this. That's what's also very important, because it's not the end of the world. It's something that's going to be a ritual, and you as a conscious, enlightened being is going to have to be spiritually prepared for this, so that when it happens, you're already there. You're already prepared. You're just in, like, what's that one meme where it's like everything is okay? I love this meme. I don't know if Brave browser's horrible with the it's like everything's fine, right? Yeah, oh my god, Brave browser's seriously the worst. You gotta go to Google. How sad is that? Yeah, this one. Yeah, it's fine. I love this. Yeah, this has to be you. In the month of September, you have to be this. You guys can tell this isn't the most scripted My podcasts are very, but for real, like you really have to. This is how I've been the entire past 4 years, 5 years with every like psyop that has happened on the world stage. Like I just listen to my intuition. My intuition prepares me to get out of a place if I think it's going to be in a bad position, or it puts me towards another thing, focusing on a different energy to just protect my prana. And this you always have to be this guy. Just grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea and just chill, surrounded in the flames. But getting back to today's decode, there's clearly code here in this Atlanta concept. And when we were talking before about the Georgia Guidestones, Albert County is just slightly, I believe, north. Oh man, is that on Highway 77? Fuck. I didn't even know. Donald Trump 77. Holy moly. One second, family. Wow, that's an insane find right there. That happened completely by accident. Wow. Okay. Georgia State Route 77. Around 7 miles. Yo. We figured it out, bro. That's it. See, I'm glad, this is so beautiful. This is so beautiful because if I didn't think about this meme and struggle and have all that weird shit, like I would have never even seen this. 77. Oh my God, I have to leave this up because this is big. And it's 103 miles long, like Mercury equals 103. And Mercury is the god of fake money, fiat. This is about CBDCs. And 23, that's the Hebrew year we're in right now. That's the Jubilee. 5783, 23, Jubilee. 23, this is all mercurial, right? Moving into the sign of Virgo during this whole time. This is ruled by Mercury, the Virgin, purity. We're going to be purified. This is so beautiful. This is the best decode I've ever made, easily. And it wasn't even a decode presentation. This is a red pill podcast. The value out of this, mind-blowing. So I got to get back on the rails because I can't kill time here. Again, we were aware that 26th tied to the date of arrest, 33 days. We had earlier Fulton, 33. We had that 88 connection. Atlanta's the capital. Atlanta, giving you that 69 code. That's yin yang. That's a number of balance. That's a number of, just again, the black within the white within the black. This is important because it's showing you that it's not evil and it's not good. It's that we need both to have contrast. It's that you wouldn't even know what good is if you didn't experience bad, right? And that they are one of this other side of the coin, right? It's like the Lucifer Jesus concept. It's all necessary, right? We need some sort of protagonist, etc. Now, we were talking about the 96th day left in the year, September 26th, being a 1-year anniversary since Shemitah. I believe we've moved through that. And then talking about the Georgia Guidestones being demolished in 2022. Again, that was the year of the Shemitah. And now that they've been demolished in the same year that the Queen died at 96 years old. And this day is the 96 days left in the year. Now, speaking of the number 33 and rituals, well, we just had Maui being, the talk of the town. And shout out and send in my positive energy to anyone who's affected by this. It's sick what they're doing over there. I'm talking about the apex predator, like what they do. DEW, you know what I'm saying? And it's just sad. I'm seriously sending out love for anyone who's affected. It's really tragic. Going over to the code, because we were talking about 33, Hawaii gives you the 33. And the 111, which comes back to New York, which was the city that we had that event. Oh my God, and the 39. I forgot about this too, because I'm going to start talking about the 39th week of the year later, which is when I think that purification time frame will be moving through it. Wow, this code is so beautiful. All right, now let's get back to I was talking before about the number 17, and Atlanta, Georgia gives you this 59. We talked about 59 a little bit earlier, and that also is the 17th prime number. Now, we know about this thing. Let me show you again. I'm not going to say it, but you guys know about these guys. They're located, their headquarters is in Atlanta, Georgia. What was the PSYOP that we all dealt with for a couple years? It had everything to do with this nonsense. Okay? So, this is perfectly tied to Atlanta, which is in Fulton County. Okay? And guess when they formed? 77 years ago. Just like Donald Trump is 77 years old. What a coincidence. So you take that acronym, which I'm not going to speak out loud, but I'm just going to type it, and we're not going to use that placement word for, because when we decode, we don't want to use for or of or the, like when you start adding in of and the and in and by and these like placement words, that just corrupts your code. So you take naturally what you're getting here, the 3-letter, and then you see what this equals. 77 in Chaldean. They were founded 77 years ago. This is in the place where Trump just got arrested in. Again, he's 77 years old. During his arrest, he's the only president ever to be arrested. Like, think about this. This is insane. So here's another mind-blowing connection. If your pineal gland hasn't exploded by now. We're going to type out this whole word, the whole term that they call themselves, just for fun, and we get this 155. I know before I said not to do this, but I think this is important to mention because this reveals something very important, okay? So we have this 155, and if you go backwards 155 days since the arrest, I'm going to show you where you end up. March 22nd, the day that the Georgia Guidestones, their anniversary. That is your exoteric 322 date in the, like, think about that. All tied in to Atlanta, Georgia, skull and bones. So the Georgia Guidestones lasted about 42 years, literally 42. Before they were ritualized. You mirror 42 and you have 24. Right back to the key number that we've been utilizing this entire decode. Will be in the Hebrew year of 5,784. Again, 5784 adds up to 24. And starting September 17th, moving into the sundown of the 18th, we will be officially in that Hebrew year. September 17th is a 24 standard date numerology. Let's also go and show you September 17th is also a 69 double-digit date numerology, just like before we were talking about Atlanta, giving you that code. And just like September 17th has the 24 date numerology, September 26th, which was the second date that we revealed, also has a 24 date numerology, 33 days after. Now, I still have so much more to share. One of the other gems, because I'm a musician, I thought of this. And some of you, if not all of you, have heard this song, Georgia on My Mind. It was popularized by Ray Charles. So I want to pull this up really quickly. You guys probably watched his documentary. I think it was Jamie Foxx, but you've all probably heard this song. It's one of the most famous songs that uses this place, Georgia, right? Now, don't ask me how I got here, but as a highly advanced decoder, this is kind of one of the rabbit holes you jump down. You start thinking of like key terms and where you hear them in pop culture. That way you could take the exoteric and bring it to the esoteric, okay? So I was looking at this song, and you can see that it was originally released back in 1930. He decided to do his rendition and cover of it in 1960, which was the year after a Shemitah back then and in the month of September. Just like we're currently 1 year after the Shemitah now, and we're about to move into September. Mind-blowing. Crazy how I even thought about this. Then when we go back to the original, you can see that it was recorded on September 15th of 1930, which is the first day of Rosh Hashanah this year. And 1930 was a Shemitah year. And this was the year after the world famous Wall Street market crash of 1929, which led to what we call the Great Depression. And look at where the studio was recorded at. I know some of you already see it. 155. Like, remember? I'm not gonna say it. 155. Like, this is like emotional, dude. 24th Street in New York City, New York, where 9/11 happened. In that city, the 155 code goes back to the 155th day of the year where Georgia Guidestones were demolished. Everything lately has been happening in Georgia. We're talking about the song Georgia on My Mind. It was recorded on 24th Street. I know some of you right now, like, you're probably like, I don't know what to say. Absolutely fucking crazy. And we're moving into the Hebrew year that's after the Jubilee year, which adds up to 24. And it was released exactly on that date, the 15th. Now, what solidifies this even more is the fact that this, from September 15th, 1930, I'm going to type that in for you guys, to September 15th of this year, is the 93rd anniversary since that song was released, Georgia on My Mind. And this is incredibly significant, this 93, because it's tied back to Saturn equals 93. Saturn is the Grim Reaper. He is death, where we get the symbolism for skull and bones. Just like the date Georgia Guidestones opened up was the 322, the order 322, that's called Skull and Bones. This was talking about maintaining humanity under a certain population level, aka controlled population, right? So, absolutely incredible. Since I'm thinking so much about these Georgia Guidestones now, I decided to take from the day they were demolished back in July 2006. July 6, 2022, excuse me. Let me get that date typed in. And if we move over around 1 year and 11 days, which is tied back to that 111 code that I was talking about earlier, because we're about to have this, well, first of all, September 11th, I'll show you really quickly, is the day leaving 111 days in the year. And that event happened in New York, which equals 111, right? So if we take this code and we tie it together from the demolished date over 1 year and 11 days, I have to put in 2023. Okay. So, sorry, what I meant to say is 1 year and 11 weeks, the 111 code. You could see that right there. And I was looking at how it's tied to September 23rd by 444 days. And then I thought about how Jay-Z's last album was called 444. You guys might be aware. Jay-Z's last album was called 444, and it was his 13th studio album. Remember, in Judaism, you practice a 13 moon calendar. All right? This guy is 100% tied into this. His last name is Z, or that's his code, JZ. Z is the lightning bolt. This is tied back to Jupiter. The zodiac logo of Jupiter is the 24. Talked about that a lot. Anywho, I think this is an interesting find, this 444. I know it has significance. I know that he knows it has significance. He didn't just pick that for a reason. So this stands out to me a lot because it lands on a Saturn day of Saturn, on a 21 date numerology, which again is Saturn equals 21 by the code. Saturn also has the 69, like we were talking about earlier with Atlanta. And why I find this so powerful, this Jupiter-Saturn concept, is this day of September 23rd is leaving 99 days left in the year, and that's Jupiter, is 99. And in the mythology, Saturn is defeated by his son, Jupiter. And that has everything to do, again, with moving on, having some sort of destruction, purification ritual, which sounds like something we're moving into. This esoterically ties back to Trump through connecting September 23rd, let me show you this date right here, to March 10th of this year, the 69th day of the year. The reason why this is so important, again, is because Silicon Valley Bank failed. A couple other banks failed, but this is 197 days, and 197 is your 45th prime number. Donald Trump is the 45th president of the United States. You can't make this up, how insanely coded this all is. So consider 3 separate 3-day windows to be extremely significant for not only the markets or crypto, but the world stage as a whole. And it's September 9th through 11th. You need to write this down. It's September 9th through 11th into the 12th. Then you have phase 2, which is September 15th through 17th into the 18th. And then phase 3, you have September 23rd through 25th into the 26th. These are all going on during weekends. So we need to consider the closest weekday when considering something financial, right? Because we need the market open in order to consider that. Let me just quickly bring you over to the Hebrew calendar, and we'll run through this really quickly. So what we have here is Elul 25, which will be this date right here, which is September 11th. Then you have Elul 29, which is the 15th of Friday, this being September 15th, or the first day of Rosh Hashanah. And then you have Tishri 7, which is the 22nd. Now this would actually be your 777 date in the Hebrew calendar, because Tishri is your 7th month. Then you have 7 day, and then, yeah, I guess you could consider everything else to this. And then you would be on the holiday of Yom Kippur, which is Tishri 10. That would be your 25th of September. This can all be looked at in a more esoteric perspective because we can utilize the Gregorian system for this transition of the 36th week of the year, which is right here, September 4th through 10th, moving into September 11th on the 37th year. But I want you to consider that moving from the 36th week of the year, which is the 3 6s, the 666, to your 39th week, where you would have week 1, 2, and 3, and then you leave that energy and you move into Yom Kippur, which is on the 25th. All right, the whole ritual should be completed in this moment, right? Now, where I'm really curious of how this is all coming back to the code in a very esoteric perspective is when you think of the 38th week, or you think of this number 38, that ties you back to gold. Gold is 38 in English ordinal, okay? And that also has 17 in Chaldean. We talked about that 17 and 7 throughout this entire decode. Now also lead equals 22 in the same cipher. And we have the 22nd anniversary of 9/11 first, before we make it to the 38th week of the year, which is that following week into the 39th. So I'm personally taking this as a 3-week trinity of moving from lead to gold, like an alchemy from lead to gold. So this even makes sense as in an astrology perspective. Let me go over here really quickly to this chart, and I could show you. Because we'll be in sidereal Leo until September 16th, which is literally Rosh Hashanah. Leo is ruled by the sun, which is tied to gold. And we move into Virgo, the Virgin, which is purity. This transition of the sun moving from Leo into Virgo happens exactly in the middle of these 3 weeks, giving our decode even more strength. We talked about the number 33 a lot, so you need to consider these threes. And it's pretty much the entire month of September, like when you really look at it, and it starts on that particular week right there, when it's transitioning at the end of the 36th week, which happens to be on a Saturn day, the 9th of September. Moving out of the 36th week, that's when we should start seeing shit go real fast. And then we're going to have most likely an event into this transition of the 38th week, leaving the 38th week into the 39th. And then we should be on a trajectory of purity after it. I really don't know what to say here, family. Like, it could very well be some sort of blackout. I'm just thinking of this concept of the 3 days of darkness. Like, I've heard this term, you all have heard it, but like I didn't think of blackout at this capacity. I know the work of Jason Breshears over at Archaics. He has a very firm outlook on this particular time frame, and me and him have connected several times talking about this. I've been more under the outlook that it won't be a lockdown that you would assume, like something that is related to this, because this is becoming the talk of the town and everyone like believes that that's what it's going to be. You know, Alex Jones became like viral again overnight with all of those sort of so-called leaks. And then he interviewed Andrew Tate recently, and they're all talking about the same thing. And now everyone and your mother knows about this idea that potentially in the third week or whatever of September that we could go back into that world again that we had to experience back in 2020, 2021. I don't personally feel it's going to be that. So part of me feels like it's a distraction right now to get people to focus on that when they're going to do something else. And what would that other thing be? I have a hard time believing it's going to be what Jason said, even though I don't disagree with him and I honor his work greatly and I respect him greatly as a decoder. I just don't think it's going to be a full-blown internet blackout like the way that he's presented. Now, again, I'm not trying to diminish his work, and I honor his work, and I want you guys to realize that. I'm not here to say somebody's wrong, by no means, and I want to collaborate. That's my energy right now, and I hope that I could reconnect with Jason and maybe like Logan, do a part 2 podcast before we get to this date, and I could share some of my thoughts from what we're revealing today, because this is powerful shit. Everything that I've connected with the Georgia Guidestones, with this Trump arrest in Fulton County, and et cetera. I mean, it's massive decode that we're getting into right now. And we're considering all these other systems. We're not just looking at it from one lane. This is really holistic. So I hope you guys have enjoyed today's decode. I have a couple more things to say, and then we'll make it into the TA. But I just wanted to get some of those thoughts off my mind really quickly of what I think it could be. And perhaps let me finish this up, and then we could theorize a little bit more. It really seems that there will be a purification ritual during this time, and I don't want to instill any fear into anyone, but it's becoming obvious to me that this is all tied together as a setup, and by tomorrow we'll just be 3 days out from the blue moon. And if you guys remember my blue moon decoded, we have some important numbers here. We have this 39. Perhaps that's leaving us clues for the 39th week of the year, starting with Yom Kippur on September 25th. Now, coincidentally, if we type out Yom Kippur, we're going to get 39 in the same cipher. As if there wasn't enough clues, let's go to the date of Yom Kippur, which is September 25th. And we're going to see something very important. This is the day leaving 97 days in the year, just like blue moon equals 97 by the code, and that was the initial word that we used to find with the 39 connection. Also, it equals 119, the mirror of 9/11, all talking about this upcoming 22nd anniversary. Now, by the code in the mythology, where I find this 97 is in Poseidon. This is your god of the ocean, the god of the seas. So this has to do with currency and finance. And we know that this has been all ritualized with trident symbolism. We saw it back with the Ukraine-Russia conflict, all of the color code and everything tied to that. And remember, we're in the year of the rabbit. And I want to just show you, it doesn't matter how I spelled this, by the way, it's still going to be the same gematria outcome. I just want you to know. That's what's nice about using this calculator, is you could even be a slightly dyslexic and still be right. So anywho, with rabbit, I was talking about we're in the year of the rabbit. We have that 5225. This is kind of bothering me. because the word flood equals 5225. And I'm just thinking about that Poseidon code that I released a second ago with that 97 days left tied to the oceans, the seas. This is making me think, with all these fire rituals going on lately, I suppose they need to, quote unquote, put out these fires or end these fire rituals with a water ritual. That's how I'm thinking about this now. But I think you guys all know my theory of 2024, and that's fire rituals continuing throughout that entire year. I've spoken about that quite a bit. Maybe I'll make a full-blown decode for that sometime in early 2024 if needed. But I believe we have enough fire rituals going on right now, actually happening on the world stage. It's pretty obvious that that's the setup into next year. These are all signs of us slowly transitioning into the age of Aquarius, an air sign, and we need the air and oxygen for these fires. And the man bearing the pitcher of water, actually, you could look at this in a deeper way, okay? You can look at this symbol as human controlling the flame, the fire, because man makes the fire, then learns how to control the fire from start to finish. This is a deeper perspective on the matter, right? We used to live around the hearth. We would make our fire, sit in a circle, and then we would put out our fire. And we needed the fire to boil the water. And again, like you continue to think on a more like basic level. You don't get too deep in the esoterica, and you just think from a common sense perspective, and you pay attention to the symbolism, and you could kind of make up your own mind there. And I believe that's how we find a lot of our own truths. So needless to say, I do kind of feel in my intuition that we might get hit with a water ritual into this particular September month. Not trying to scare anyone. I'm not trying to push any fear. You guys know me. It's just about looking at the code and doing our best to see it for what it is. But I think Georgia has everything to do with all of it. So whatever you guys could find about this and what I've shared today, and perhaps its ties back to Trump, please let us know. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts. So let's quickly run through the stock market really quickly, best we can. Couple things to say. All right, we have the Dow chart right here. We have this pattern which is showing us that we've come back to a support trend line. We've touched it on the Friday close. We've bounced a little bit higher, but if I zoom out and look at the major fib pull that we have, the macro fib pull from the current all-time high to this swing low right there at the end of the Shemitah, we've actually just backtested the 702. So let me look at the S&P, and we can see the same story. We backtested the 702. Now let's go to the NASDAQ. You could see actually the same story. Perfect backtest on the 702. So check. We're all following the same sort of analysis. And now what we're seeing clean here on the Dow is a little bit of a pattern, and do we get a bounce? So let's look at when we test this to moving up. We have about 32 days from the first touch point. From over here, we have about 22 days off that touch point. Maybe take from here off the last touch point, we get 21 days. So that's showing us somewhere around 20 to 22 days off of the last time interacting with this. We get a little bit of a bounce, and the bounce actually happens pretty quick. A majority of it looks like it kicks in about 2 weeks. Let me look here. Yeah, you could see right there by 10 days into that transition of 2 weeks, we were pretty much broken out after backtesting this. So if we were to consider here off 14 days, like the initial iteration, that's bringing us to September 8th, which is a Friday. That would be into the next close 2 weeks from today. And then if you moved over 22 days, that would be bringing you right there to Monday, the 18th. That would be right after Rosh Hashanah, like the first official day, like full day of the new year, new Hebrew year. So that gives us a little window to consider pretty much between now and, I wouldn't get so soon. Like we need to look at like maybe the blue moon, we gravitate up to it, which is a tweet that I put out. I shared this. I didn't want to, I'm not trying to be a riddler. I think I've talked about this enough, but I said bounce into new moon, float into the 36th. We have Jubilee, Black Swan, c'est la vie. And we just need to get through the month of September. It's always pretty negative then. So I think that that's something to consider. We do have this window where we could move up into like that first, let's just say into the weekend of Rosh Hashanah, and then that could be it, lights out. And if we move up a little earlier, then yeah. Now, I was pretty adamant that I felt we were done. I said that a long time ago that I just thought we would have an automatic rally, and then we would come back down. We overextended actually a little bit. We overextended almost up to the 888 fib. That's pretty gnarly, but hey, whatever. Still, generally, we are in the process of a bull trap. We can't confirm our bull trap though until we start a reversal, which would be a break below the 618. And I think the structure right here of this trend line would show us that first we would backtest there, crater through it, and then move down. But if I was to pull a micro fib, which you can do for all of these, you'll see something that I think is very important, which is that the way that this golden pocket interacts with our macro golden pocket at the top is similar. So we could move up in the Dow back to around the 786, and then that would be your bull trap, like a micro bull trap. I don't know if we have the juice to move one leg higher, but you can see on this structure, we zigzagged and always went on higher highs. So at best, we make it up a little bit more for like an upper bull trap in the micro, but that would be very odd. And then we have the FOMC meeting on the 20th. So it's the same news for all three indices. We don't really need to get too caught up in it. Let's just quickly analyze the NASDAQ to have something to consider for this big mover. And you can see the 786 is sitting there right there at our 382 fib. And what do I teach you guys? In a automatic rally, whether you're looking at it on a very short time frame or a big time frame, you want to get above the 382. So if we could really start solidifying closes above this 786 level, which is around your 382 into the 0.5, that's when you could have a micro automatic rally in this situation. If I could draw it out for you guys, it would look like something like this. Maybe move into the 702, or even just double top and then boom, something like that. So keep that all in mind. That would be the way that I would analyze this right now. Let me move over to the DXY because I think this tells another important story. And I'm going to zoom out all the way here to I'll keep it on the daily. And we see this major trend line that's been going on for a while now. And a little bit of a jolt to the upside. If I was to measure this, I'd assume we'd hit something very technical. Oh, what do you know? Right there at the 1618, the golden ratio. Now you guys know the magic of knowing how to use this properly. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure that you have a logarithmic chart on and you turn on this setting, fibs levels based on log scale. You can see how perfect that is. Big rejection coming back to the 786, which is another thing I teach. After you hit the golden ratio, you tend to gravitate back to the golden pocket, and this is exactly how it's going. Now, I do like how we're interacting with this, but if DXY bullish, that means market down. So in the short term, I do see that we've been getting rejected a lot in this 104 area. We see it back here, which then got back tested, and then we continued up to the 1618, but then we came right back to that level at the end. Then we've snaked around this 103, 104 level quite a bit, and we've been having a lot of a struggle of like really cementing a breakout above 105 into 106. I do anticipate if we have a market crash, we'll be getting that to happen. Pretty much a break above this level would be what you want to look out for. So let me just duplicate this. Let me go back here. Let me duplicate the line and just put it right there for you guys. Nice and clean. Okay, so like that 106 area, once we start breaking above that, it's thin air all the way up to 109, 110. And that's nasty. Like if we think about the end of Rosh Hashanah of last year into the end of, look at that, right there in September 25th, 26th, that was Rosh Hashanah. That was when we peaked. So we have a lot of movement between up here and all the way at 109, 110, and we could even make it a little bit higher depending. We could consider doing this to determine like if we were to rally. Oh, look at that. Perfect. You see where it brings you? Pretty much 110, 109.9. So that's where I would anticipate if we're going to have a nice move to the upside, you'd want to look there. Now, going to this chart really quick on the DXY. This tells me another story, which I've shared this theory already with you guys about a breakout, considering a kind of a, larger pullback in the markets. But if we were to get rejected around right here and back test into like the September 10th, September 11th time frame, that would make a ton of sense for us to have a little bit more relief. And then we would be back testing this prior resistance that's been in play now for 160 days. I mean, I could even be fair and extend this out more. Yeah, that's super fair, because look at that. Boom. And right there, where once we got below that, we started to really move to the downside. So this has been a very crucial trend line. And let's just say it's been in play now for 270, almost a full year. So when we break above a resistance, what do we need to do? We need to back test it. So consider that, all right? A back test of this level in timing to move up to your 109, 110 area. And then I believe once we make it into the new year, this will start to come right back down to this major trend line. I don't think whatever crash or whatever shit we're going to experience is going to last too long. I think it's going to be a short and sweet, just to liquidate as many people as possible and to keep it moving. I'm still very bullish on Q1. It's typically very bullish in a Q1, Q2 of a presidential election year, which we're moving into. Specifically by March into April, I think we'll be very bullish in the crypto market. Let me go over to crypto now. Okay, so Bitcoin, in my last video, we discussed these Mercury retrograde scenarios where from entering Mercury retrograde, 9 or about 10 out of 11 iterations during Mercury retrograde, we did make a new micro higher high, or a micro top during. And some iterations like this right here, we just went up throughout the entirety of it. We saw this also happen over here. We went up the whole time. Over here, we went up the whole time. Here we zigzagged a lot, but we still made a pretty decent gain from the day entering to the day, excuse me. Let me go over here. From the day entering to the top, we moved up about 19%. I know it doesn't look like much when we zoom out, but that's pretty significant, because if we were to do 19% off the day we started, yeah, we're looking at a break all the way up to literally the current high in our structure at 31K. So that would be a pretty dramatic impulse at this time to go all the way from 25 back test up to 31 where we were. It would look like a reversal of everything we just experienced on the downside, you know? So keep that in mind. During Mercury retrograde, we do tend to move up in the middle of it somewhat, and then we've had iterations where we've made it all the way to the end, and so far, I mean, we're just holding right now. We've been holding pretty tight about a week now at this 26 level. We have it Mercury retrograde, or Mercury will be stationed direct by the 15th, which is the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which makes, again, a lot of sense if we're going to have deeper pullback after. And then I shared my analysis on how in some iterations of these Mercury retrogrades, about 3 days after Rosh Hashanah is about as high as we stay. And then we've gotten some corrections. So that's like the timing of this market. But what I would like to do really quickly is go over to the, we're going to go to that firmament chart, just kind of track where we're at. I went over this in my last YouTube video as well, but we have this key date right here of the 18th, and this is measured off of this pivot right here going over 96 days. We can see that we've been having critical pivots every 69 to 96 days. We have it from right here, right there on the low over to this low, 69 days, and from here over to this low, it was 96 days. And so far from here over to here would make sense if we make another low, and that would kind of make me feel like between now and then we need to move a little bit up, and the top of this is at 29K. So that gives us an idea of where we can go, where we would be keeping up with this firmament dome. And if we broke out of it, that'd be incredible if Bitcoin could have an impulse higher, but ultimately it seems like we would need some bullish isolated event to happen, like a Bitcoin ETF passing at like the last minute. And that's totally in the cards as like a black swan on a positive side for Bitcoin. Either that, or there's or like we could come up with this theory, which I think is interesting, is the BlackRock ETF being denied, like not being approved. That'd be super fucking bearish because it's already so bearish. But considering that BlackRock has invested a ton into MicroStrategy, and we know that MicroStrategy, what their whole job is in this world, and Michael Saylor's job as a talking head on the world stage to promote Bitcoin, I mean, that kind of makes me more confident that whatever big crash happens in the market, I don't think it's going to affect Bitcoin as much as it's going to affect everything else. And then that Bitcoin ETF concept could be sensible if they're going to ritualize it that way. Because we're moving into the year of the dragon. The dragon is fire. It's the sun. That's what eclipse mythology was all about. It's when the dragon swallows the sun. And I very much think that Bitcoin is going to have a good 2024. Everything else, we have to see. But typically it's until Bitcoin has its halvening event and then moves into price discovery is when we really see alts move. And we have a lot of time between now and then. So it goes back to what I said at the beginning of this podcast, where we're still in an accumulation energy for altcoins, which is great. I just wouldn't be somebody that's overexposed to alts right now because of what's to come. If we are going to have a pullback, it's obviously going to dramatically affect altcoins. So from mid-dome analysis, we've reviewed. Now let's go over to the first tab again and review some traditional analysis. We're going to look at this without any noise. We're going to pull up some of our moving averages. Okay, so we're looking at the bi-weekly close right now because we're about to have one come in. And if you look at the low support on the bi-weekly coming back at June 5th, we actually were at 26.3, and right now we're below that. So closing at these levels right now at 26 or lower would not look good. If CME opens up tonight and buys us back a little bit to like 26.5, that would just look like we back tested a key support, which was a prior resistance. That would be very good, but this looks a little sketchy. Closing below the 8 simple moving average on a bi-weekly does not look good. But the last time we did look at the following week, this was June 5th when we closed below on this exact level we're trading at now. The following week, we went up 16%. So if we were to get right back there to a similar level and then pop up 16%, where that would bring us is about 30K. That would be right there at the top of this firmament dome. A little bit higher, actually. So I'm not saying it's going to repeat, but it's just something to keep in mind, that we had an insanely bullish week after having what looked like a perpetual downtrend, which ended up being a bear trap. So let's go to the weekly. Oh, this is really not good. Yeah, I don't like this bi-weekly close coming in below all of these key EMAs. That's really a sign of weakness. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I really don't like that. Yeah, this looks bearish, in my opinion. And we're about to probably have a cross. No, not yet. Sloping to the downside, though, on MACD. I don't like that either. Below 50 on the RSI and the biweekly, I don't like that. Anywhere we close right now, it's going to look like it's going to send this RSI a little bit lower. Yeah, we're starting to look like we're reversing now. Being dead honest with you guys. I'm looking at the monthly chart right now because we're about to close a monthly between now and our next red pill. Yeah, we just started to cross that. And now like we're right back there with some more downside slope. This isn't looking good on the monthly either. It's the same analysis. We're below. I would really like us to get above 27.3 on the monthly for sure. Because otherwise this is just another low. This is kind of looking like this now. Like it's kind of giving that energy as opposed to back here. Yeah, I don't know. I really do feel like we're more like the 2015, 2016 cycle than this cycle. I mean, it does actually... Yeah, let me take back what I was saying because I keep remembering if I needed to give a comparison, it's so much cleaner to just consider this time right here. And remember, we had the August flash crash here. We had an August flash crash here. We did not have an August flash crash in this iteration, and we just had an August flash crash on the exact dates. So I do feel like this supports that. We're like right here. And look at when we started moving up. Let me take that into account. I think it was about a 200-day mode of like when we had that to when we recovered. Yeah, here it was like within 115 days, and here to recovery 200 days. Yeah, you see from here, from this flash crash right there to when we got into price discovery was 200 days. I remember seeing this 200-day cycle in many iterations. So if we were to consider that 200 days, yeah, that's bringing us into like March. So that shows us that there's some down, but ultimately recovery into that time frame. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to look at the bi-monthly because I think that's telling a story as well. Bi-monthly is not looking good. The same month that this happened in, you see this was July 2016. This one's the July candle of 2023. This is your July candle of 2019. We always kind of have this bad monthly candle, but right after it, we actually picked back up. So that'd be interesting if we could close off September. Yeah, sorry, that would be opening up into September, excuse me, and then moving into November, exactly. Yeah, that'd be interesting. That's a 21% candle. But I've already told you guys I'm more bearish on September. So this is a bi-monthly though. That means it would be the combination between September and October. If we were to have a flash crash and recovery through our solar eclipse of October, that would not be weird moving into November in recovery. I said, I think in the last podcast, that I intuitively feel that into the end of the year, we're probably just going to be right back where we were a couple of weeks ago, like into 31K again near the end of this year. So that's actually pretty positive. That aligns with also past performance. Now let's look at Ethereum. Okay, Ethereum, same story. We're just back testing the prior resistance that we got right here. It's looking like we're about to close a bi-weekly on a lower low, which doesn't look great, but this looks like it could eventually like bull flag. I don't like to make those calls though, but that does sort of seem like what's going on here. Let me look at the bi-monthly, see if we're getting anything. Not really, just back testing. And you could see right here, it's very clean. We had 1, 2, 3, 4 candles of resistance on the bi-monthly. We flipped it and now we're just back testing it. So this looks better. This looks good. Even though we're on a red candle, you could kind of see where I'm coming from here. I think that looks fine. Look at the weekly and let's see if we're getting anything worth it. Okay, so all of our weekly key EMAs are coiling up right here at the support level. 200 exponential, 200 simple, and the 55 simple all right there. That's looking good. That should hold right now. But once we start to close below that, lights out. So I want you guys to take note of that as you hold ETH. There's really no need to get into daily analysis with this. Pretty much, I would just imagine gravitating back up to right about here if we're going to have an impulse, because this was your horizontal support that we tried to hold, and that sits at around 1800. That also is in perfect alignment with the 200 exponential, 200 daily. So consider if we get an impulse buyback, it's around 1800 on ETH. Okay, XRP. Let me look at the bi-monthly, even though this doesn't tell us a whole lot, but we are closing green. So fine. I mean, unless we get sucked down to 40 something cents, 46 cents, we're about to close green. This actually doesn't look horrible on the monthly. I know it looks like a Twin Towers, like an as above, so below, but you can see that this was a lot of resistance and now we're back testing it. So what I would like to see on the monthly, I would like to see above 53, 54 cents on this monthly close would be ideal. And that would just be a slight buyback from right now, from right here. So not horrible. I have to admit, this doesn't look the worst, because if you really consider when we broke this level, we were treating that as a resistance for 400 days. And now we're just starting to backtest it. So we needed to do that backtest. That's why I was very vocal about coming back to 50 cents after this de-risking opportunity at 80 to 90 cents. But I still feel if we're going to get more of a washout into September, October, then we want to look for the low 40 cents as an opportunity for XRP, which we already sort of got on that flash crash date. But yeah, I shared the 42 cent concept. We're pretty much there, man. 40 cents has already been filled. It would be nice if retail stepped in, but yeah, right now on the daily, we're looking pretty shaky. We're holding on the 200s. That's a good sign. I would say if we were to close below 50 cents, just as a psychological clean level, lights out, we're going a little bit lower, and then it would be 46 because that's your horizontal your horizontal support. But for now, with this wolf cross to the downside, holding this level, I mean, this is a bear trap, and I do feel like we have an opportunity to move up, but this is also a bear flag. So, yeah, I do feel slight impulses are possible right now just because that's what the apex predator likes to do. They like to get you to be bullish right before they crash it hard. It's basics. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get like a 60-cent XRP, like a 58 to 60-cent XRP before a rejection, and then we come back lower. It's probably not enough to entice a de-risk though, because the range will be just too tight. And I know I shared some analysis about us moving into the 70s, but that's only if conditions are met. And the condition was above the 63, 64 level. If we can't clear that, then there is no 70 cent again. That's it. And we're getting way too close to this moment right now. Consider if Bitcoin can move up 20%, this 20% move for XRP would only be 63 cents. I mean, obviously XRP has more room to go up because it's an altcoin. So at best, maybe 68, 69 right there at this level that was attempting to hold as a support before we broke lower. And that just aligns with the last analysis I put out. So I'll keep it at that. We're going to move on to Verge. Ooh, very similar impulse to the upside like XRP did and pullback. Okay, let's zoom out though, because I want to look at this more on a larger scale. Okay, do I have any? Okay, so what we're seeing right here on the Verge chart, let me go over to here really quickly. Yeah, I don't have anything, do I? Okay. So what we're looking at right now is actually really good. What I mean by this is this was your buying climax in the macro. This was your selling climax in the macro. This was your automatic rally, and this is a clear spring. Double bottom. That tells me that if we come back again to these levels, this is probably the last chance to get in on low Verge. Now, I'm very cautious about what I'm saying right now because if we break below this level, it's lights out for a really hardcore drop. So you could see there's thin air between here and all the way down here, which would be an additional loss off of that support of like 95% more. Like, holy shit, right? Because that would be like getting in and then dropping an additional, yeah, I mean, then it would be an absolute shit coin. But I don't love this chart because it's never gone to price discovery since the last 2017 bull run. It got a lackluster, like if I show you what happened, like it just moved into the golden pocket on the macro, boom. That's a macro automatic rally. It did not follow like Bitcoin into a new all-time high or like ETH did. So that's a sign of weakness. But if we're looking at opportunity, putting in a small amount in this stuff puts you at, you know, a 2,000% gain to just get back to the AR levels. And if this really is a macro spring, that means that at these levels here, you have an opportunity of moving up to price discovery. Even your SOS would bring you somewhere into like a 6,000% gain. So these are like venture capital opportunities where you throw in like 2% of your portfolio, 3% at max, but you don't go much more than that. Just be very careful because like I said earlier, you have this massive drop below this level down to here. That's not good. And if I was to show what we're working with here, if I was to pull my reverse fib, oh my goodness, that would be your level that I'd probably pay attention to on a deeper fall, somewhere around 004, which doesn't really make much sense because it's still higher than this peak over here. But yeah, that's how springs look. That's how I was able to determine all those losses on Hex. And like speaking of Hex really quickly, I shared the date of the 25th, 26th for Hex weeks ago, and we literally pivoted perfectly into my price target right below 003, which I shared perfectly, and then pivoted out, and now we have this channel that's forming. I'm not going to go over this coin today, but I just want to share, like, dude, the analysis on this has been mind-bogglingly accurate. And I was able to determine those price targets with a similar methodology that I just showed you before of just pulling a reverse fib at this macro horizontal support level. And anytime you break below that, it's kind of like spring vibes. So this could actually be your test. If this is to hold, this is how a test would look, which comes in after a spring. That would be good. It has to hold these levels here. Anything below 002, it gets kind of dicey. So Lots of upside potential on Verge, but still it's a black swan could take this thing out instantaneously. Now we have Fetch AI. All right, so we had a little bit of tracking on this. We've done TA on this in the past, clearly, and you could see we have our buying climax, selling climax, automatic rally, perfect in the golden pocket as I teach, and now we're gravitating back to the 236, which is most likely going to be coming very soon. So that's how it works here. The issue is that usually after you have an automatic rally, you go into a spring, which breaks you lower than here. So if I was to put like, I'll change this to the red color and I'll show you where the springs would be. It's right there. So that's like what we would anticipate if we're going to drop a little bit more. Like maybe we move up, boom, 236, get below it, resistance, and then, yeah, I mean, it has to happen fast. But these altcoins are not going to follow like Bitcoin does in this phase. And we could see this type of energy where it came straight from the current level we're trading at. You see this green line that's cutting through here? That's the current trading price. You see the way we fell from this exact level down to this red level? We broke straight through all of this. And during the C19 crash, I mean, we really fucking cratered below it. We did like a weird inverse head and shoulders and kept it moving. But yeah, you want to keep this 0.3, you want to keep the 3 cent level in mind, this whole zone. And it could be fulfilled even in the year of 2024 during the time frame that Bitcoin is just stealing all of that dominance, which is typically how cycles go. And I don't know too much about this project, but I'm seeing the black and white symbolism in the square, and it has AI in it. I mean, clearly had a nice automatic rally, so some money was moving in, about 1,000% almost. It's a very nice AR. Let's see off of, I'm not going to count the crash, but let's see. Yeah, 3,000%, really solid move. Let's look at the correction. Thus far, we've corrected, 95%. That's about what we typically get. We had our AR after that. That's very typical. And now we're coming back to the 382. We'll probably be at the 236 soon. Very typical. So yeah, this is moving nicely. It's holding on a little bit of the support over here, but once we break through that, it's most likely going to double bottom into a spring. So I'd keep that in mind. And clearly not enough chart history to really prove itself, but it did trade through the C19 moment. And I've said this many times, I don't like paying too much attention to stuff that hasn't gone through this black swan. This has shown that it could make it through the black swan. It's hold a higher low support, a higher lows structure since then, even on the selling climax. So can't say too many bad things about it. Okay, moving on to DAG, Constellation. Alrighty, so we just have a little bit of a horizontal trading range back here, and now we're just gravitating right back down to it, snaking around this resistance, which could now be treated as a support, but still 94% loss, very typical. We've even broken through the 1618, so if we were to adjust this would be about where I would adjust it to. This is really scary for this project, but you see where it brings us. The reason for this is if you look from top to bottom, touch, breakthrough, and then we've come back up to this exact level and we've gotten rejected again, okay? So I like that, and I would consider that if we're gonna go much deeper, it's to a penny. No bueno. Let me just extend this all the way. This gives you an idea that we could even make it there. Yeah, a drop through rejection. And that's exactly the median. If I was to pull a channel right here, which is pretty simple to pull a horizontal channel, you could see what this does. Boom! Right there in the middle of that channel is your 1618, which I just showed you. Okay, family? So yeah, be very cautious on this. It could very well go. Let me just keep that there for you guys, just for fun. And this idea in case we review it in the future. That's not looking good. So yeah, if it breaks below 0028, then you have this drop probably down to the 1 cent level, and then a rally off of that, I would assume. Then your automatic rally, if this goes through one, and by the way, this did have the C19 crash moment, it lived through that. But if we were to have an automatic rally for this in the future, we're looking at up to 11 cents. So that's a 10x. Pretty much. Yeah, just be cautious. Again, venture capital, it doesn't have a whole lot of chart history. It doesn't really prove in itself. Whilst Bitcoin has recovered back into like up here territory, this thing's still on a perpetual downtrend. So it's not following Bitcoin at all. It's just down and down and down. And it's probably a declination of volume, which is a sign that, yep, low volume. Yeah, so it's a sign that this is only retail playing with this. And I will be direct and honest with you guys right now. You must not be betting on shit that only retail plays with. Not at this time. Retail has no money left. If we have another crash, they're going to be weak hands. They're going to spill the beans, let everything go. It's going to drop harder. Things like Bitcoin are going to maintain because that's big money behind that. You got to pay attention to these words. I'm not a Bitcoin maxi. You guys know me. I'm very holistic in my vision. But yeah, I don't feel good about charts like what I just looked at. Okay, we're at Cosmos now. This is another good example of like, look at this type of chart structure. Bitcoin is somewhere into these levels right now, whilst this thing is dropping lower at these times. So retail is just continuing to drop the ball over and over and over again. We've started to break below the 236. So this had its automatic rally right here. I could label that really quickly for everyone. We have BC. Oh, why did it throw it up there? We have AR. And then we're moving into good old spring loaded. And that spring would be denoted by a break below the prior selling climax. I should probably write that too. And yeah, that would just bring you back to this backup phase of the last cycle. So here you had your spring, then you had a little bit of a shake to the upside, no real test. This would be like a SOS, kind of awkward, but whatever. And then you have a backup, and then you have price discovery. So yeah, like you want to be cautious because this thing's probably going back to $4, if not even lower. And what we could do right now to have fun with a theory of where this can go is we just pull a fib in reverse like this. And yeah, that looks perfect to me. Let me pull a horizontal channel like I did before. You guys might like that type of analysis because it's like clean, very clean analysis. Yep. Okay. So this makes so much sense getting into this range right there. So I'm going to keep that. I'm going to delete this. This gives you an idea of like where we could drop 333. And there you go, family. That's how I'd analyze this in the short term. If we're going to move up a little bit more, it's most likely into the 236 rejected. Maybe let me turn the other fib off because now it's just getting confusing. Okay. Yeah. I'm more down on this, obviously, based on how it's moving. This is just retail continuing to de-risk. So I'm going to leave it at that, family. Packed episode, hour and a half long. I hope you guys enjoyed this one today. Wow, that decode in the beginning, it's incredibly valuable. I think there's going to be a lot of notes to be taken. Please share your thoughts over in our Discord. I cannot wait to release this to you guys and to hear how you're going about this new information. And let's spend the next couple weeks working together as a community to prepare for what's to come on all levels, spiritually, physically, mentally, get everything in order. This is a transitional time. And it's important that we use the most valuable currency we all have, which is each other. So I'm going to leave it at that. I appreciate every single one of you, and I'm looking forward already to next week's Red Pill podcast. Appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend in the Matrix. Much love.